My sister Clara and I were inseparable, two peas in a pod, until a man named Derek slithered into her life. I saw through his charm, but she saw only stars. When her wedding day sparked a feud that tore us apart, I thought our bond was forever broken. Years later, with Clara sobbing on my doorstep, I faced a choice: help the sister who betrayed me or protect the life I'd rebuilt. But some betrayals cut too deep to mend. I stood in the kitchen of my parents' cozy Amherst home, the smell of Mom's blueberry cobbler wrapping around me like a warm shawl. Clara, my younger sister, twirled into the room, her laughter brighter than the sunlight spilling through the lace curtains. At 22, she was a firecracker, petite, with curls that danced when she moved and eyes that held 1,000 dreams. We'd always been close, sharing late-night secrets under blankets, whispering about boys and plotting our big lives. She was my shadow, my spark, my everything. That day, though, something felt off. Clara was clutching her phone, her cheeks flushed with a secret she couldn't wait to spill. "Eliza," she said, grabbing my hands, "I met someone. His name's Derek, and he's perfect." Her voice bubbled like champagne, but the name Derek landed like a pebble in my gut. I forced a smile, asking her to tell me more, hoping my unease was just big sister protectiveness kicking in. She gushed about Derek's sleek car, his corner office in Boston, his way of making her feel like the only woman in the world. But when I met him a week later at a family barbecue, my stomach twisted tighter. Derek was all polished charm, tall, with a jawline sharp enough to cut glass and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He shook my hand, his grip too firm, and called me Lizzie, despite my correction. "Clara's told me so much about her big sis," he said, but his tone carried a smirk, like I was a quaint little obstacle. I watched him all afternoon, how he steered Clara's every move, his hand on her waist, guiding her to the grill, interrupting her stories with his own louder ones. When he bragged about his latest deal, glancing at me as if daring me to compete, I knew this man wasn't just trouble. He was a storm waiting to wreck my sister's life. That night, I pulled Clara aside in the backyard, the fireflies blinking like tiny warnings. "Clara, I'm worried about Derek," I said, keeping my voice soft. "He seems controlling. Don't you think he's moving too fast?" Her face, so open moments before, hardened into a mask. "You're jealous, Eliza," she snapped, her words slicing through my. "Just because you're stuck in that dead-end librarian job, alone, doesn't mean you get to ruin my happiness. Derek's successful, charming, everything you don't have." Her words stung like a slap. I wanted to shake her, to make her see the red flags I couldn't ignore. But Clara stormed off, leaving me under the stars, my heart pounding with a mix of hurt and resolve. She was wrong about me. I wasn't jealous. I was terrified for her, and I'd do whatever it took to protect her, even if she hated me for it. My goal crystallized that night. I had to save Clara from Derek before he broke her spirit. I didn't know how deep his influence ran, or how far she'd push me away, but I couldn't let her marry a man who dimmed her light. As I walked back to the house, the weight of our fight settled on my shoulders. Clara and I had never clashed like this before. But if saving her meant fighting her, I'd fight with everything I had. The weeks after our backyard fight felt like wading through molasses. Clara avoided me, her texts short and clipped, her visits to our parents' house timed when she knew I'd be at work. I buried myself in my job at the Amherst Library, shelving books and helping college kids find obscure texts, but my mind was always on her. Every dog-eared page I straightened felt like a reminder of the creases forming between us. I missed her laugh, her teasing, the way she'd sneak me extra whipped cream on my coffee. But Derek's shadow loomed larger every day, and I couldn't shake the dread that I was losing her to him. I tried to gather evidence, something concrete to prove Derek wasn't the prince Clara thought he was. I noticed how he'd text her constantly when we were together, pulling her attention like a puppet on strings. Once, at a family dinner, I caught him rolling his eyes when Clara shared a story about her art classes. She'd always dreamed of being a painter. "Art's a cute hobby," he said, cutting her off, "but it's not like it pays the bills." Clara's smile faltered, and I wanted to scream. Couldn't she see how he dimmed her spark? I started asking around, discreetly. My friend Jenna, who worked in Boston's financial district, knew of Derek's firm. "He's got a reputation," she told me over coffee, her voice low. "Smooth talker, big deals, but some say he's ruthless. Word is, he's got a temper when things don't go his way." My stomach churned. Ruthless. That word stuck to me like damp air. I needed Clara to hear this. But after our last fight, I knew she'd shut me out if I pushed too hard. So I tried a softer approach. I invited Clara to lunch at our favorite diner, the one with the retro jukebox and greasy fries we'd split as kids. She showed up, but Derek came too, uninvited. He slid into the booth beside her, his arm draped over her shoulders like he owned her. I forced a smile, my heart sinking. "I just wanted some sister time," I said, keeping my tone light. Clara shrugged, her eyes on Derek. "He's part of my life now, Eliza. Get used it." Lunch was torture. Derek dominated the conversation, bragging about a new client he'd landed, while Clara nodded like a bobblehead. When I asked about her painting, she mumbled something about being too busy. I wanted to grab her hand and run, just like when we were kids escaping a thunderstorm. Instead, I paid the bill and left, my chest tight with frustration. I wasn't giving up, but I needed a new plan, one that wouldn't push her further into his arms. That night, I sat in my tiny apartment, scrolling through photos of us on my phone. Clara and me at the Cape, building sandcastles, grinning like nothing could break us. I had to find a way to reach her, to make her see Derek's true colors before she was in too deep. But how? She was slipping away, and every step I took seemed to widen the gap. I fell asleep with my phone on my chest, the weight of her absence heavier than ever. Then came the positive twist I hadn't expected. At work, I overheard a student talking about a coworker at Derek's firm who'd quit under shady circumstances. A lead. If I could track this person down, maybe they'd have proof. Something undeniable to show Clara. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered in my chest. I had a thread to pull, a chance to save my sister. But I had to tread carefully, or I'd lose her for good. The library was my sanctuary, its quiet stacks a refuge from the storm brewing in my life. But even there, Clara's absence gnawed at me. I'd always pictured us growing old together, sharing stories over tea, laughing about our quirks. Now with Derek in the picture, that future felt like a fading photograph. I clung to the lead I'd overheard, a coworker who'd left Derek's firm under a cloud. If I could find them, maybe I'd have something solid to show Clara, something to break the spell. I started digging. The student who'd mentioned the coworker, a lanky kid named Sam, worked part-time at the library. Over coffee breaks, I nudged him for details, keeping it casual so I didn't spook him. "Oh, that guy? His name's Mark," Sam said one day, wiping crumbs off his shirt. "Heard he quit because Derek screwed him over on a deal. Something about unpaid bonuses." My pulse quickened. Mark. A name. A thread. I found him on LinkedIn, a tired-looking man in his 40s, now at a smaller firm. I sent a message, vague but polite, asking if he'd talk about his time working with Derek. No reply yet, but I felt a spark of progress. Meanwhile, Clara was charging toward a future I couldn't stop. She called me one evening, her voice bright but brittle. "Eliza, Derek proposed," she squealed. "We're getting married in June." My heart sank like a stone in a pond. June was 3 months away. I stammered congratulations, but my mind screamed, too fast, too wrong. I wanted to beg her to slow down, but her accusation of jealousy still stung. I bit my tongue, promising to be there for her, even as my resolve hardened. I had to find Mark, and fast. I tried to stay close to Clara, hoping to spot cracks in Derek's facade. At a family brunch, I watched him order for her without asking, dismissing her request for pancakes with a laugh. "She needs to watch her figure," he said, winking at my parents. Clara blushed, shrinking into her seat, and I gripped my fork so hard my knuckles whitened. Mom and Dad chuckled, oblivious, but I saw it. Derek was reshaping her, piece by piece. I pulled her aside later, offering to help plan the wedding, hoping to rebuild our bond. "I've got Derek," she said sharply, brushing past me. The rejection cut deep, but I swallowed it. I'd keep trying. Then came the negative twist. Mark finally replied to my message, agreeing to meet at a coffee shop in Boston. I was buzzing with hope, certain he'd give me the ammo I needed. But when I got there, he was jittery, his eyes darting to the door. "I can't talk much," he said, barely touching his coffee. "Derek's got connections. If he finds out I'm talking, I'm done in this industry." He confirmed Derek had cheated him out of a bonus, but he wouldn't give details or go on record. "Just watch your sister," he muttered before leaving. My heart sank. I'd hit a dead end. Without proof, Clara would never believe me. Back home, I sat on my couch, staring at the engagement party invite Clara had texted me. Her happiness felt like a wall I couldn't climb. I wanted to protect her, to save her from a man who'd already started to dull her shine. But with Mark's refusal and Clara's growing distance, my options were shrinking. I had to find another way, something to shake her awake before she said, "I do." The clock was ticking, and I was running out of time. The engagement party invite burned a hole in my phone, Clara's name glowing like a warning. I wanted to skip it, to avoid seeing Derek's smug face, but I couldn't abandon her. If I was going to save Clara, I had to stay close, no matter how much it hurt. I spent weeks crafting her gift, a hand-painted photo album of our childhood, each page a memory of us laughing, dreaming, unbreakable. It was my way of reminding her who she was before Derek. I hoped she'd feel it, even if she wouldn't admit it. The party was at a swanky Boston venue, all fairy lights and champagne flutes. Clara floated through the crowd, her engagement ring catching the light like a tiny sun. She looked beautiful, but her smile was tight, like she was performing. Derek, in a tailored suit, kept her glued to his side, his hand possessive on her arm. I hovered on the edges, clutching my gift, feeling like an outsider in my sister's life. Mom and Dad were there, beaming, oblivious to the tension coiling in my chest. When it was time for gifts, I stepped forward, my heart pounding. "Clara, this is for you," I said, handing her the album. Her eyes softened for a moment, and I thought I saw a flicker of the old Clara, but Derek snatched it before she could open it. "What's this, a scrapbook?" he said, flipping through it with a smirk. "Cute, Lizzie, but a bit juvenile, no?" The room laughed, and Clara's face flushed. I stood frozen, humiliation burning my cheeks. My gift, poured with love, was reduced to a joke. I wanted to snap back, to call him out, but Clara's pleading look stopped me. She didn't defend me, though. She just tucked the album under a pile of designer bags and moved on. I swallowed my anger, forcing myself to stay calm. I'd come to protect her, not start a scene. But inside, I was screaming. How could she let him treat me like that? How could she choose him over us? Later, I found her alone by the dessert table, picking at a cupcake. "Clara, can we talk?" I asked, my voice low. "About the album, about everything." Her eyes narrowed. "You always have to make it about you, Eliza," she hissed. "This is my night. Stop trying to ruin it." Before I could respond, Derek appeared, steering her away. I was left with the sting of her words and the sinking realization that my sister was slipping further out of reach. Then came a neutral twist, one I couldn't yet read. As I grabbed my coat to leave, a woman approached me. Lydia, one of Clara's coworkers, her face kind but cautious. "I saw what happened with the gift," she said softly. "Clara's not herself lately. She talks about you, you know, misses you. But Derek, he's got her wrapped tight." She slipped me her number, offering to talk more later. Was this an ally, a way to get through to Clara, or just another dead end? I couldn't tell, but I pocketed the number, my mind racing. Driving home, the city lights blurred through my tears. Clara's rejection, Derek's cruelty, the album discarded. It all hurt more than I could bear. But Lydia's words gave me a sliver of hope, a puzzle piece I didn't yet understand. I had to keep fighting for Clara, even if she fought me back. The wedding was 2 months away, and I was running out of moves. But I'd find a way to reach her, to break Derek's hold, no matter what it took. The weeks after the engagement party felt like walking on broken glass. Clara's sharp words, accusing me of stealing her spotlight, echoed in my head, cutting deeper each time. I kept Lydia's number pinned to my fridge, a lifeline I hadn't yet dared to use. Part of me hoped she'd call first, but the silence was deafening. I threw myself into work, organizing library events with a forced smile, but every quiet moment brought Clara's face to mind. Her tight smile, her eyes avoiding mine. I was losing her, and the wedding was barreling closer, a storm I couldn't outrun. I decided to call Lydia. Her voice was warm but guarded when she answered. We met at a small cafe in Amherst, away from Boston's prying eyes. Lydia, with her neat braid and nervous hands, worked with Clara at an art gallery. "She's changed since Derek," she said, stirring her tea. "She used to talk about her paintings, her dreams. Now it's all about him, his plans, his wants." She paused, then leaned in. "Last week I overheard him on the phone, yelling about some deal gone wrong. He sounded unhinged. My heart raced. This was something, but still not enough." Lydia promised to keep an eye on Clara and let me know if anything else surfaced. It was a thread, thin, but real. Back home, I tried to focus on the wedding, hoping to find a way back into Clara's heart. I offered to help with her dress fittings, remembering how we'd played dress-up as kids, giggling in Mom's old gowns. She agreed, reluctantly, and we met at a boutique in Northampton. For a moment, it felt like old times, her twirling in a white gown, me clapping like we were kids again. But then Derek showed up, unannounced, and the air shifted. "That dress is fine, babe, but let's not waste time," he said, checking his watch. Clara's smile faded, and she nodded, obedient. I bit my lip, holding back the urge to confront him. I had to stay in her life, not push her away. That night, I lay awake, replaying every moment with Clara. I could still see her at 10, painting wildflowers on my bedroom wall, promising we'd always be a team. Now she was a stranger, molded by Derek's hands. I needed more than whispers and hunches to save her. I started digging online, searching Derek's name, his firm, anything that might expose him. I found nothing solid, just glossy articles about his rising star status. Frustration clawed at me. Was I chasing shadows? Then came a minor climax, a moment that shook me. At a family dinner, Clara announced they'd set a venue, a grand hotel in Boston. Everyone cheered, but I noticed something. Clara's hands trembled as she spoke, her eyes darting to Derek for approval. After dinner, I cornered her in the kitchen. "Clara, are you okay?" I asked, my voice soft. "You don't seem you." Her eyes flashed with anger. "Stop it, Eliza, I'm happy. Why can't you just be happy for me?" She stormed out, leaving me with a sinking feeling. I wasn't just fighting Derek, I was fighting her denial. As I drove home, Lydia's words echoed. Derek, unhinged. Clara, trembling. I was closer to the truth, but it felt like quicksand. The wedding was 6 weeks away, and I had no proof, no plan, just a sister who was slipping through my fingers. I had to keep pushing, to find a crack in Derek's armor before it was too late. But the more I pushed, the more I risked losing her forever. The wedding was a month away, and every day felt like a countdown to disaster. Clara's texts were now one-word replies, her calls non-existent. I'd see her at family gatherings, her laughter forced, her eyes darting to Derek like he held her leash. I wanted to scream, to shake her until she remembered who she was. My fearless little sister, the one who'd climb trees and paint murals with me. But she was a ghost of that girl, and I was running out of time to bring her back. I leaned harder on Lydia, who became my eyes and ears. She texted me updates. Clara skipping gallery shifts, Derek snapping at her in public. One message chilled me. Saw Clara crying in the break room. Wouldn't talk about it. I begged Lydia to dig deeper, and she promised to try. Meanwhile, I kept searching for dirt on Derek, scouring social media, even old news articles. Nothing concrete, just more of his polished image. My frustration was a knot in my chest, tightening with every dead end. Then came a moment that felt like a lifeline. Lydia called me late one night, her voice shaky. "Eliza, I found something. An old email from a client at the gallery, sent to Clara. They mentioned Derek, said he pressured them into a shady investment deal. Clara brushed it off, but it's proof he's not clean." My heart leaped. I asked her to forward it, and when I read the email, There it was. A client accusing Derek of strong-arming them into a deal that tanked. It wasn't a smoking gun, but it was a crack in his armor. I needed more, something Clara couldn't ignore. I planned to show her the email at the next family event, a barbecue at my parents' house. I arrived early, clutching my phone like a weapon, rehearsing how I'd approach her. But when Clara walked in, she looked hollow, her eyes red-rimmed, her smile a mask. Derek was right behind her, his hand on her back, steering her like always. I waited for a moment alone, but he never left her side. At one point, I caught her gaze across the yard, and for a second, I saw a flicker of the old Clara, scared, trapped. My resolve hardened. I had to act, now. I cornered her by the picnic table, away from Derek's watchful eyes. "Clara, please, just look at this," I said, showing her the email on my phone. "This is who Derek is. He's not good for you." Her face crumpled, and for a moment I thought I'd reached her, but then her eyes hardened. "You're obsessed, Eliza?" she spat. "You can't stand that I'm happy. Just stop." She pushed past me, and Derek appeared, his jaw tight. "Leave her alone, Lizzie," he said, his voice low and cold. "You're embarrassing yourself." That was the moment it all crashed down. The crisis hit like a wave, pulling me under. Clara wasn't just pushing me away. She was choosing him, fully, blindly. I stood there, the email useless in my hand, my heart breaking. I'd failed to reach her, and the wedding was weeks away. Worse, Derek's threat lingered, a warning I couldn't ignore. He wasn't just controlling Clara, he was dangerous, and I was in his crosshairs. I drove home, tears blurring the road, my mind spinning. I had one last chance to save her, but it meant risking everything. Her trust, our family, maybe even my own safety. I wasn't sure I had the strength, but I knew I couldn't stop now. The barbecue left me rattled, Derek's cold warning echoing in my ears like a drumbeat. I drove home, with my hands shaking on the wheel, the email on my phone now feeling like a taunt. Clara's rejection stung worse than ever. She'd looked at me like I was the enemy, not Derek. I wanted to give up, to let her make her own mistakes, but the image of her trembling hands at that family dinner wouldn't leave me. She was in trouble, even if she couldn't see it. I had to keep fighting, even if it meant standing alone. I called Lydia the next day, desperate for anything new. She sounded tense, whispering like someone might overhear. "Eliza, I found another client who dealt with Derek," she said. "They're willing to talk, but only off the record. Said he manipulated them into a bad deal, then threatened them when they complained." My pulse quickened. Another piece of the puzzle, but still no hard proof. I begged Lydia to keep digging, to find anything Clara couldn't dismiss. She hesitated, then agreed, her voice heavy with worry. "Be careful, Eliza. Derek's not someone to mess with." I tried to focus on my own life, to find some balance. Work at the library was steady, but my heart wasn't in it. Every book I shelved reminded me of Clara, how we'd read under blankets with flashlights, giggling over silly stories. Now she was weeks from marrying a man who was chipping away at her soul. I couldn't let that happen. I decided to try one last time to reach her before the wedding, maybe at her bridal shower. I'd go, play the supportive sister, and look for a moment to show her the truth. The shower was at Mom's house, decked out with pastel streamers and a cake shaped like a wedding dress. Clara was the center of attention, laughing with her friends, but I saw the strain in her eyes, the way she glanced at her phone every few minutes. Derek wasn't there, thank God, but his presence lingered. I gave her a small gift, a necklace with a tiny paintbrush charm, a nod to her old dreams. Her smile wavered as she took it, and for a second, I thought she'd say something real, but she just hugged me quickly and moved on to the next guest. Then came another blow, a moment that shook my resolve. As I helped Mom clean up after, she pulled me aside, her face stern. "Eliza, you need to stop this vendetta against Derek," she said. "Clara's happy, and you're acting like a child, stirring up trouble." Her words hit like a punch. "Mom, my rock, thought I was the problem?" I tried to explain, to tell her about the email, the clients, but she waved me off. "You're jealous, sweetheart. Let your sister live her life." I left the house feeling like the ground had shifted beneath me. If even Mom couldn't see it, how could I convince Clara? That night, alone in my apartment, I stared at the necklace's twin, a matching paintbrush charm I'd kept for myself. I felt like I was screaming into a void, my warnings ignored, my love for Clara weaponized against me. The wedding was 3 weeks away, and I was losing allies. Lydia was my only hope now, but her caution made me nervous. Derek's reach was long, and I was starting to feel his shadow over me too. I had to decide, keep pushing, risking everything, or step back and let Clara walk into the fire. My heart said fight, but my strength was fading fast. The wedding was 2 weeks away, and I felt like I was staring down a cliff. Mom's words at the bridal shower, that I was acting like a child, clung to me like damp clothes. I wanted to scream that I was trying to save Clara, not hurt her, but even my own family saw me as the villain. Every night, I lay awake, the paintbrush charm necklace cold against my skin, a reminder of the sister I was losing. I was running out of moves, but giving up wasn't an option, not when Clara's future was at stake. Lydia was my last lifeline. She called me one morning, her voice urgent. "Eliza, I got something big." A former colleague of Derek's, Rachel, reached out. She says she has documents, emails, contracts, showing Derek's been skimming profits from deals. She's scared, but she'll meet you. My heart pounded. This could be it, the proof I needed to shatter Derek's facade. We arranged to meet Rachel in a quiet diner outside Boston, far from his reach. I spent the day pacing, my mind racing with hope and fear. If this panned out, I could save Clara. If not, I was out of cards. The meeting with Rachel was tense. She was a wiry woman with sharp eyes, constantly glancing over her shoulder. "Derek's charming until he's not," she said, sliding a USB drive across the table. "These show he doctored financials to cheat clients. I left the firm because of him." I clutched the drive, my hands trembling. This was the smoking gun I'd been chasing. But Rachel's warning chilled me. "He knows when people snoop. Be careful." I nodded, promising to keep her name out of it. Driving home, the USB felt like a bomb in my pocket, powerful but dangerous. I planned to show Clara the evidence before the wedding, but getting her alone was nearly impossible. Derek was always there, his presence suffocating. I tried texting her, asking for a quick coffee, but she replied with excuses. Too busy with fittings, too tired from planning. Desperate, I showed up at her apartment unannounced. She opened the door, her face pale, her hair messy. "Eliza, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice sharp. I held up the USB. "Clara, you need to see this. It's about Derek." Her eyes flashed with anger. "Not this again," she snapped, slamming the door. I stood there, stunned, the USB useless in my hand. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the files on my laptop, emails, spreadsheets, proof of Derek's lies. It was all there, but Clara wouldn't even look. I felt like I was drowning in my own helplessness. The wedding was days away, and I was losing her to a man who'd built his life on deceit. I considered going to Mom and Dad, but after Mom's lecture, I knew they'd dismiss me. Lydia was still watching Clara, but her updates were grim. Clara was withdrawing, barely speaking at work. Then came a minor peak of tension. At a final dress fitting, I saw Clara alone for a moment, adjusting her veil in the mirror. She looked like a stranger, her eyes hollow. "Clara," I whispered, "I'm begging you, just talk to me." She turned, her face cold. "You're ruining everything, Eliza. Just stay out of my life." Her words were a knife, twisting deep. I left the shop, my vision blurred with tears, the USB burning a hole in my purse. I was so close to saving her, but she was pushing me away harder than ever. The wedding loomed, and I had one last chance to break through, or lose her forever. The wedding was days away, and I was a wreck. The USB drive sat on my kitchen counter, its contents screaming truths Clara refused to hear. Her last words at the dress fitting, "Just stay out of my life," played on a loop in my head, each one a splinter in my heart. I'd spent months trying to save her, gathering scraps of evidence, chasing shadows, but she was slipping away, her love for Derek blinding her to his poison. I felt like I was shouting into a storm, my voice lost in the wind. I called Lydia one last time, my voice cracking. "Anything new?" I asked, clutching at straws. She sighed, her tone heavy. "Clara's barely at the gallery anymore. She's different, Eliza. Quiet, jumpy. Yesterday, I saw bruises on her wrist, but she said it was nothing." My stomach dropped. Bruises? The word hit like a freight train. I begged Lydia to keep watching, to document anything suspicious. She agreed, but her fear was palpable. "Eliza, if Derek finds out I'm helping you." She didn't finish, but I knew. We were both walking a tightrope. I decided to make one final plea at the rehearsal dinner, a small affair at the Boston hotel where the wedding would take place. I dressed carefully, the paintbrush charm necklace tucked under my blouse, a quiet reminder of why I was fighting. The room was aglow with candlelight, but the warmth felt hollow. Clara was radiant in a cream dress, but her eyes were glassy, her movements stiff. Derek hovered, his smile sharp as a blade. I watched him whisper something to her, saw her flinch, and my blood boiled. I had to act, even if it meant blowing everything up. During a quiet moment, I pulled Clara into a hallway, my heart pounding. "Clara, please," I said, holding out the USB. "This proves Derek's been lying, cheating people. And Lydia saw bruises on you. I'm scared for you." Her face twisted. Anger, fear, something I couldn't name. "You're lying," she whispered, but her voice shook. "You just want to ruin this." Before I could respond, Derek appeared, his eyes narrowing. "What's this, Lizzie?" he said, his tone dripping venom. "Trying to play hero again?" Clara stepped back, her face pale, and I saw it. A flicker of doubt in her eyes, but she turned away, clinging to his arm. The dinner was a blur of forced smiles and clinking glasses. I sat through toasts, my mind racing. That flicker of doubt. Was it enough? I wanted to believe I'd planted a seed, but Clara's silence felt like a wall. Later, as I grabbed my coat, Mom caught my arm. "Eliza, you're breaking her heart," she said, her voice sharp. "Let this go." I pulled away, tears stinging. Even Mom thought I was the problem. I was alone. The USB my only weapon, and the wedding was tomorrow. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying Clara's flinch, the bruises Lydia mentioned. I was so close, but so far. Derek's threat at the dinner lingered, his eyes promising trouble if I kept pushing. I was terrified, not just for Clara, but for myself. The wedding loomed like a guillotine, and I had one last chance to stop it. I didn't know if I could reach her, but I had to try, even if it meant risking everything. I clutched the necklace, whispering a promise to the sister I used to know. "I won't give up on you." The wedding day dawned like a storm cloud over Boston, heavy with dread. I stood in my apartment, the USB drive in my pocket, its weight both a lifeline and a burden. Clara's flinch at the rehearsal dinner, the bruises Lydia mentioned, haunted me. That flicker of doubt in her eyes. It was my last hope. I had one final chance to reach her before she bound herself to Derek forever. I slipped the paintbrush charm necklace around my neck, a silent vow to the sister I loved, and headed to the hotel, my heart a tangle of fear and determination. The venue was a vision of white roses and golden light, but it felt like a stage for a tragedy. Guests milled about, their laughter grating against my nerves. Clara was in a private suite, getting ready, and I knew I had to get to her before the ceremony. I slipped past aunts and cousins, my palms sweaty, the USB burning in my pocket. I knocked on the suite door, my voice barely steady. "Clara, it's me. Please, just 5 minutes." The door cracked open, and there she was, in her wedding gown, her face pale under layers of makeup. "Eliza, not now," she whispered, but her eyes were wide, like a trapped animal's. I pushed inside, closing the door behind me. "Clara, you have to see this," I said, pulling out the USB and a small laptop I'd brought. "These are emails, contracts, proof Derek's been cheating people, lying, and Lydia saw bruises on you. I know you're scared, but you don't have to do this." Her hands shook as she took the laptop, her eyes scanning the screen. For a moment I thought I'd broken through, but then the door burst open, and Derek stormed in, his face a mask of fury. "What the hell is this, Lizzie?" he snarled, snatching the laptop from Clara. She gasped, stepping back, and I saw it again. That flinch, that fear. "You're poisoning her against me," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Get out, or I'll make sure you regret it." My heart pounded, but I stood my ground. "Clara, you saw the files, you know I'm right." Her eyes darted between us, tears welling. I don't know," she stammered. Derek grabbed her arm, not hard, but enough to make her wince. "We're done here," he said, pulling her toward the door. I lunged forward, desperate. "Clara, please!" But she shook her head, her voice breaking. "Just go, Eliza, you're ruining everything." Then came the final blow, the moment that shattered me. As I pleaded, Clara's face twisted with rage. "You're pathetic, Eliza," she screamed, her voice echoing in the suite. "You're so jealous you can't stand to see me happy?" The room spun. Guests outside turned, staring, as Derek smirked, guiding her away. "You're not welcome here," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Leave, or I'll have security drag you out." Humiliated, I stumbled out, the crowd's whispers cutting like knives. Clara had chosen him, publicly, brutally. I was kicked out of her wedding, my heart in pieces. I drove home, tears streaming, the USB useless now. The sister I'd fought for had turned on me, and Derek's threat hung like a noose. I was alone, my mission in tatters, the wedding marching on without me. But as I clutched the necklace, a spark of defiance flickered. This wasn't over. I'd lost the battle, but not the war. I had to find another way to save Clara, even if she hated me for it. The years after Clara's wedding blurred into a haze of grief and reinvention. Her words, "You're pathetic, Eliza," and Derek's smirk as I was thrown out haunted me, but I refused to let them define me. I cut contact with Clara, seeing her only at strained family holidays, where we exchanged polite nods, the paintbrush charm necklace now a relic in my drawer. Mom scolding at one Thanksgiving, calling me childish for not reconciling, stung, but I held firm. I had to protect myself from the sister who'd chosen a liar over me. I threw myself into my life, landing a promotion at the library, taking yoga classes, and meeting Noah, a kind lawyer with warm eyes who made me feel seen. My world was healing, but Clara's absence was a quiet ache. Then, one rainy evening, she appeared at my door, mascara streaked, her eyes raw with tears. "Eliza, I need you," she sobbed. My heart twisted. Anger, love, and caution collided. Against my better judgment, I let her in, her familiar scent of lavender stirring memories of our childhood. Over tea, she spilled her story. Derek had cheated, his arrogance growing as his deals soured. She'd confronted him, and he'd turned cold, mocking her for thinking she could leave. Mom and Dad, tired of her complaints, told her to handle it herself. "I have nowhere else to go," she whispered. I hesitated, the memory of her betrayal sharp, but her brokenness softened me. I agreed to help, for the sister she'd once been. Noah stepped in, offering to review Clara's prenup and start divorce proceedings. He was a rock, his calm presence grounding me as I navigated the mess. Clara stayed with us, sleeping on my couch, her gratitude laced with fragility. For a moment, I dared to hope we could rebuild, sisters again, stronger for it. But then came the twist that shattered everything. One afternoon, I came home early and overheard Clara in the kitchen, her voice low and flirty, giggling with Noah. "You're so much better than Derek," she said, her tone unmistakable. Noah sounded flustered, mumbling something polite, but the damage was done. I stood frozen, betrayal burning through me. Clara, my sister, was trying to charm my boyfriend. I stormed in, my voice shaking. "Get out, Clara." Her eyes widened, feigning innocence. But I saw the truth. She hadn't changed. She'd used me again. "Eliza, it's not what you think," she cried, but I was done. I pointed to the door, my heart hardening. "You don't get to hurt me anymore." She left, sobbing, but I felt no guilt, only clarity. Helping her had been a mistake. Noah apologized, swearing he'd shut her down, and I believed him, but the wound was fresh. I'd fought for Clara, lost her at her wedding, and now I was letting her go for good. Months later, I heard through Mom that Clara had left Derek, moving to a small apartment, starting over. Part of me hoped she'd find herself, but I couldn't be her savior. I stood up for my own heart, choosing peace over pain. The injustice of her betrayal was behind me, replaced by a life I'd built, strong, whole, mine. I looked in the mirror, the woman staring back, no longer a sister's shadow, but a survivor. What would you have done? Let me know in the comments. Could you forgive a betrayal like that? Hit like if you're with me, and subscribe for more stories of standing tall.